How's it going, everybody? Hope you guys are having a great day today. It is a beautiful Friday afternoon here. And so today I just want to talk about what we have with Total War Pharaoh, kind of the things they've announced, a few things I've heard from people, as well as some thoughts I have on it, some concerns, things like that. So I'm going to try and keep it to a short video. I've watched if you haven't, I'll drop the link in the description, but they do have a about 45-minute video talking about kind of some of the new additions they have to the game, the history of the game, what they're trying to accomplish with it. And then the other video I'll drop is a Lionheart X10 video with the gameplay footage with one of the battles that he played. It's about 15 to 17 minutes, I believe. And so those are videos I definitely recommend going and looking at and watching. But I think right off the bat, I think the game looks like it could be really, really fun. I think it has a lot of potential. Sorry about that, guys. My audio cut out in the first take for about 2 minutes. What I was kind of saying was that there's a lot of potential for this game, but right now the content just isn't quite there as from what we've seen. So as we get closer to the game, hopefully we'll see a lot more content in terms of the factions, the units available, and a lot of just unique content there. I don't want to see each of the factions having kind of the same playstyle with just some different units. Like, I want different playstyles. Like, the way I play as Sparta is going to be very different than the way I play as Rome in Rome 2. At least it should be. The way that politics work. Things such as those. Like, the strengths for each faction needs to be differentiated. I'd love to see Egypt, yes, have strong military, but I'd love to see Egypt be able to kind of be like an economic powerhouse. To be a faction that can rule more through the economics more than necessarily having to use the military. Like, I'd love to see kind of some unique play like that, where maybe military is not your strongest suit. Maybe you aren't gonna try and conquer nations and things through military, but maybe it's kind of economic, almost as a like, hey, we'll give you a lot of money if you decide to be our subject. Things like that. I think that'd be a really cool dynamic. I don't know if that's what there is going to be in this game, but I'd love to see that at least maybe in future Total War games. But yeah, I think there's a ton of potential for Pharaoh, and we'll talk about kind of the things that are out right now about it. But I think we need to see a little bit more content, which I'll talk more about later on too. Right now we're on just their website, some of the things that that are out here. So you'll see in so it's not this one. So it's the Total War Pharaoh first look. So you'll see in this they talk about the Pharaoh and the Hittite High King, and this aspect of as you're playing through the game and you gain legitimacy, and this new aspect called legitimacy, you can select to choose to become the Egyptian Pharaoh or potentially the Hittite High King, or you could even choose to be neither of those and just try to go it your own way. I think this is a really cool idea. I think this could allow for some very different playability, play styles, and things like that, and present new challenges and things like that. So it will be really interesting being able to see how that plays out, and I am really excited for that. I think it's a super cool mechanic that they've added in. Moving on, the dynamic battles, the weather. So they're adding dynamic weather in. So what this means is that in the middle of a battle, you may start out in dry conditions. So in Rome 2 Total War, you would be able to kind of wait for the prime conditions. Usually if you didn't want to fight when it was raining, You wanted to wait till it was dry often, depending on your army composition. But what's interesting with this is that they have made it so it's dynamic weather. So in Lionheart's gameplay video, you see the battle starts in just regular, like the dry conditions you would see in Rome 2, but then it ends up about halfway through the battle, a sandstorm comes in, and then he's fighting in a sandstorm. And I believe towards the end of that battle, the sandstorm is gone then. So really cool how they're doing that. There's the aspects of mud, so it could start raining in the middle of a battle, and that's going to alter how you strategize. So if you are relying a lot on chariots, you might run into big issues if rain starts in the middle of the battle and slows those down. The other thing is they have brought back some matched combat, more almost kind of like Rome 2's matched combat. I would like to see it very much the combat be more like Rome 2 in that combat, but it feels kind of like an in-between right now of like Troy's no matched combat and Rome 2's like everything's matched combat. So I would like to see it more on the matched combat side versus just, oh, here's a random swing that goes through, which if you see Lionheart's video, you'll be able to kind of see that in action and that effect of it's sort of like Troy combat, and then you'll see some matched combat pop up here and there. Next up, the whole strategy of the game actually is really, really kind of interesting. So the whole idea is that you have these groups of people being pushed into your land that are destroying your land, and there's these key cities that you have to defend, and if you lose those cities, if they get destroyed, it affects the entire world throughout it. So like if you're playing as Egypt and the Hittites, they lose those cities, the only way, like, that affects you as well. So you there's an incentive to go invade the Hittite lands and take those settlements and rebuild them in order to decrease the chaos, which all of this you can look at in that first look video that Total War put out. So I highly recommend going and doing that. But this idea with these cities, I really like it. It seems like a really cool idea, and a great way to kind of guide I shouldn't say guide, but it adds these points that you really need to defend them. So it's not just this, oh, I'm just going to give up that city, take these few others, and then I'll worry about that later down the road. But you really do have to make sure that you're defending these key points while you still try to like conquer lands. So the first leader they've announced is Ramesses, which character design looks very similar to this in game. So really cool character design. I haven't really seen much. This is pretty much all they have on his playstyle. So historically, the last great monarch of Egypt's kingdom, Ramesses is regarded as a true warrior pharaoh whose daring military strategies are matched only by his heroic resolve, fueled by his desire to surpass the achievements of his namesake Ramesses II the Great. He leads with speed and intuition that give his armies of well-honored elite units the upper hand even against numerically superior opponents. He strongly believes destiny calls him to take the throne and deliver Egypt in a time of crisis and a looming existential threat. So he's going to be a quick progress character, flexible with plentiful of resources. Pretty much it's going to be like your introduction faction, introduction leader for this game, sort of like Rome was for Rome 2. It's your faction that you are gonna do perfectly fine learning the game with that. Unit style, so elite, adaptable, strong, medium infantry and archers, charging chariots. Losses are additionally damaging. So this is actually a speaking of the infantry and the chariots, so this game is going to be heavily focused on infantry. I don't know if it's confirmed for sure, but I have heard supposedly, that there aren't going to be regular cavalry really in the game, and it's mostly just going to be chariots. The chariot unit cap was increased, so rather than it being like 15 to 18 chariots in a unit, it's now like 30. So it'll be a lot higher amount of chariots in there, and you have to use them very well and wisely. And that's all there was for that. So to kind of talk a little bit about the... Well, maybe it wasn't. Hold up. Oh, yeah. And then, so then there are three different... there are three different packs. So you have all three of these, which this is a bit of a disappointing part that I will actually get into in a little bit. And then you'll have a pre-order bonus, cosmetics. So you'll have cosmetic packs, which I'll talk about that as well. So I'll talk about those in a minute. The other thing I think I wanted to kind of touch on was just the game looks visually really appealing. It looks really good. I do worry though about the content aspect, as I mentioned earlier. So it is focused heavily on the Bronze Age and a pretty localized area. The factions they've mentioned so far: the city-states of Canaan, the Hittite Empire, as well as the Egyptian Empire. And from what we saw in Lionheart's video with the gameplay, the two battles, I believe it was two Egyptian factions fighting against each other, so that is why, but there's not much visual difference. They pretty much look identical. It looks kind of like copy and pasted units, which if it's the same culture, like that makes sense. However, I would like to see a little bit more unit variety, just adding some specialized units to things, like even if it's just leader based. Like if you play as Ramesses, have some specific units that are Ramesses focused. If you're playing as the Hittites, have some units that are focused to that specific Hittite leader. That's maybe just some special units, even if it's just you only get one or two, but like having that aspect I think could be really important. And yeah, so now let's shift a little bit of focus to this aspect right here. So I think I have a couple different thoughts about this. As I mentioned early on, right now it doesn't look like there's enough content for it to be worth this. If all you're getting is the base game, I don't think it's worth $60. I think if they can add some cool differences in factions, if they can add some uniqueness to those factions, I'd say sure, absolutely could be worth $60. But it needs to be unique. I think like Rome 2, you had a lot of unique different factions. I mean, like the barbarians, they were pretty similar. So that was kind of a downside, but like the Greek states, for example, when they released Rome 2, the Greek city-states faction pack came as a pre-order bonus. If you got the deluxe edition or whatever, you got it with it. That is what I think should be. That is what should be a pre-order bonus or a faction pack DLC. They need to add really genuinely unique units. If I remember right, I believe 3 city-states, and that was, I know it was Sparta, Athens, and I think it might have been Syracuse. I could be wrong on that, but whichever one of the other Greek states it was, or maybe it was Pergamon. Who is in the Greek states? Was it Epirus? I don't. It might have been Epirus. I forget. which three it was, but each one is different. So Sparta, I mean, just with the vanilla game, Sparta, you had only spear and pike units, but they were very specific. You had your Periorkoi, Hoplites, you had your Periorkoi Peltis, you had your Periorkoi pikemen, then you had your Spartan Hoplites, Spartan archers, you had your Spartan pikemen, your heroes of Sparta, your royal Spartans. Like, you had very unique units to that you couldn't get in any other faction. Athens, you had a little bit more copy and paste, but you had a wider variety of units. So you had your thorax swordsmen, you had your Theros spears, your militia spearmen, your I don't know if they had light spearmen. I think they did. But then you had your hoplites, you had your you had archers, you had all that. So you at least had very unique units compared to the other Greek faction, the Greek states faction. Epirus, you had a lot more. It was more like a pikeman focused army, and so like that was a cool thing to be able to see. So each of those city states were very different. I think if they want this to be worth $60, they need to add in more factions in the base game that are like that. Moving on, this idea of the faction packs, I don't know what that looks like yet, or the campaign pack DLC. I don't know what it looks like. The fact that there's a campaign pack DLC worries me. If these are all just cosmetics, I think that's totally fine. But if they're... I don't think it should all be worth this. And I think doing all of this here, I think they're running a little bit of a dangerous game a little bit. I think a lot of game companies are getting to this point of DLCs are great. Yeah, I think for the cosmetics, if people want to pay for the cosmetics, fine, absolutely. What I do worry about is that what companies have started to do is they're releasing a game that doesn't have everything it should have as a base game, and then they're selling the pieces to complete that game as DLC. That is my worry. I don't want to see Total War go down that route, so I do worry about that. But I'm very hopeful that they don't do that, and I am not gonna pass any judgment until I see what these specific things are. I think if they do cosmetic packs, I'm totally okay with that. Cosmetic packs I don't consider that as something that's taking away from the game. As long as they genuinely flesh out the game and give us a good game at the start, then I am all for the cosmetic packs. I'm all for those extra faction cosmetics and things like that. I'd happily pay for cosmetics that I think are really cool. I think that'd be really fun to be able to see that, or to be able to have these different unit cosmetics, to maybe pick those cosmetics in the game and give certain units certain cosmetics to really kind of set that uniqueness, if that's the way they want to do it. I just think they need to make sure they deliver an actually good base game that is a fully fleshed out game, and don't try to flesh out the game through DLCs. That's where I'd be really disappointed in them if they did that. But yeah, that pretty much kind of wraps it up. Here's just the kind of big summary of it. I'm really excited for this game. I think it could be I genuinely do think it's going to be a really fun game. From everything I've seen so far, it looks like they're going to bring a completely different play mechanics of play style and things to this game, while still holding on to the things that we really like in Total War games. So I'm really excited for that. I'm a little worried about the depth of content that there is right now, and I want to make sure that they have plenty. But I think it's going to be a really good game. There's still so much. Well, there's still 4 months at least until the release date. I think they have plenty of time, and they may be way farther along in the game and adding things to the game than they've shown. So I'm excited for the game. I think it has a ton of great potential, absolutely a ton of great potential, and so far they've done really well in all their games. And yeah, I'm excited for the game. I'm not worried about this stuff too much yet until we actually see what that is gonna be. So yeah, just keep a lookout. Go check out Lionheart's video as well as the kind of the first looks for Total War Pharaoh, and yeah, let me know in the comments what you guys think. If you guys hear anything, go ahead and like let me know where you guys heard it and just link like where you got it from, and I'd love to go check those things out and stay kind of on top of this. And if anything new comes out, I'll let you guys know and try to put out a video. All right, and that's it for today. Thanks, guys.